Well, good afternoon, everybody. This is Brother Jake Fry. I'm the pastor of Emmanuel Baptist Church, and I'm here to bring you the Midweek Word for this week. I want to thank you all for joining us today. Obviously, I'm not in the office at church recording this at home. I just wasn't able to get over to the church this week. But I do want to share a few things with you about our updates as far as COVID is concerned, and then we'll spend some time in the Word as well. So as far as COVID updates, for those of you who may not have seen the video yesterday, if you didn't see the post yesterday, we announced that we will not be meeting in person this Sunday on the 5th of September to give us one more week, just to make sure everybody's safe. Numbers are still pretty high right now, and we just want to do what needs to be done to take care of our church. So for this week, we're going to do one more week of online only. So that's Sunday morning and Sunday night. And the following Wednesday, so a week from yesterday, we will also be meeting online. So there'll be another Midweek Word video next week on Wednesday, Lord willing. Now, on the 12th, we are planning on being together in person for Sunday mornings only. So Sunday morning only, and that's no Sunday school, just Sunday morning worship. And let me explain why we're scaling back just to Sunday morning. At first, I thought, well, if we're meeting on Sunday morning, we might as well have Sunday school. But it got brought to my attention, and it was a good observation that I didn't catch, but I really couldn't argue against it either. Right now, we're having Sunday school in the sanctuary with everybody, so that we can social distance well. So all the adults are in one class right now in the sanctuary. If we have Sunday school and then end at 10:30 and service doesn't start until 10:55, that's a lot of time for people to congregate and talk, and that raises the risk of spreading the virus in the congregation. So we thought it would be best, at least just to start off, going to just Sunday morning only. I know that's a bummer because I love Sunday school, and I want us to pick up Sunday school, and but that's just kind of where we are right now. That's what we need to do to keep each other safe. So Sunday mornings only is what we'll start doing again for now. And then as soon as we can get back to Sunday school, Sunday school would be the first thing that we would open back up. That would be the first thing we'd want to do. So we'll get back to that and then get back to our evening services. I'm praying this is not a long, drawn-out thing, but we just don't know right now. But the numbers have just gotten way out of hand. If you look at Tennessee on a map right now as far as hot spots, the map that I've been looking at, purple and really dark purple and almost black is like the worst numbers you can get to, right? And Tennessee is pretty well covered up in purple right now. So we want to be careful. Let me say this too, and then we'll get into the Word. I know that each church is having to do their own thing, right? So I just want us to be careful and realize that we cannot pass judgment on any other church who is meeting as business as usual, or any churches who've decided to scale back altogether and they're not meeting at all. We can't pass judgment on them right now, because what works for our church may not work for another church, and what works for another church may not be working for our church. So we can't pass judgment on another church, and another church can't pass judgment on us. We've got to be gracious with each other and just do what we need to do to meet the needs of our church, because the needs of each church are specific to that congregation. So I just want to be clear on that, where we are on that. But Lord willing, we are planning on meeting in person for Sunday morning only at 10:55 a.m. on September 12th. So this week, September 5th, this Sunday, it'll all be online only. All right, so let me just share a little bit of encouragement with you because here we are again, still dealing with COVID. And I don't know about you, but I've asked myself recently, just, man, how long is this going to last? And I know some of you may be thinking this as well, that it's probably here to stay. Maybe here like the flu, it's just something that's going to be around. But there's still this thing of, the flu's still around, but we have a fairly decent handle on it. We just don't have a handle on COVID right now very well. And so for me, the question is almost more of how long is it going to be like this with COVID? And maybe you've dealt with that too. I have sensed growth in our church and excitement in our church. And as one dear church member told me earlier this week, momentum in our church. And I have felt that. And it just, and then things like this happen and you wonder, are we hindering the growth and the movement of the church? So what I want to do is share with you, if you've had those thoughts, because I have, and so this is an encouragement to me as well. But if you've had those thoughts, I just want to share with you a few words of encouragement from the book of Hebrews, beginning in chapter 10, verse 23, and through verse 25. Verse 23 says this: "Let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near." So I want to do two things with this passage. One, I want to bring us some encouragement through the word, but I also want to answer this question because it's a legitimate question. At what point, when we're not meeting in person, what point are we neglecting meeting together? And are we doing that now? Maybe that's a question that's come across your mind. So I want to talk about that. So first, let's just talk about some encouragement for a minute. And I think it's all going to be encouragement before it's over with. What do we do in times like these when here we are again facing COVID and we're not meeting in person, at least for 2 weeks, right? What are we supposed to do during times like this? Well, the author of Hebrews says, "Let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful." Friends, I just want to tell you that it's often said about death when we go to funerals, or when I've preached funerals, I've said this before, that Christians don't react to death the way everybody else does. I've also said about trials, that Christians don't react to trials the way everybody else does. Well, I want to tell you too that Christians should not react to COVID the way that everybody else does. Now, what I'm not saying is you don't pay attention to any of the experts, or you're not paying attention to your health and trying to stay safe. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is this, that we don't live in such a way that it causes us to doubt our faith. We don't react to COVID in such a way that we live in fear. And what I mean by that is that we doubt that what God has told us in His Word is true, and that's difficult during times like these and things that we are dealing with right now. But we are supposed to be the people who the Bible says that we hold fast our confession of hope without wavering. So friends, even during times like this, we are supposed to be the people that when the rest of the world is watching, and the rest of the world is dealing with this issue too of COVID, we are supposed to be the people who the world can look to, and they see us holding on to a confession of hope without wavering, right? So they see us, they see the witness of how we're living, they see the witness of the gospel of Jesus Christ in our lives, and they say something's different. Something the way I'm living and the way they're living does not line up. Something's not right. Something's off. There's something different about them that I don't have and that I need. And so we're called. It almost seems impossible. And if you cut this verse in half, it is impossible to live during times like these and to hold fast to our confession of our hope without wavering. That means without shifting, without letting go of it, being firm and rooted in the Word. But here's why that we can be faithful and that we can be unwavering as we hold fast to our confession. For he who promised is faithful. Do you see why we can hold fast to our confession, why we can hold fast to the Word of God and believe that this is the truth, why we can still have hope in the middle of COVID and the things that are going on in the world right now? Because he who promised is faithful. Friends, if I could just be transparent with you, and maybe some of you are watching, you don't go to our church, but you're watching because this came up on your timeline. I have asked myself, what kind of world has Ella been born into? You know, Carly and I wanted a child for a while and thought we might not be able to have one. And then when she was finally born, she was born in the middle of a pandemic of all things, the likes of which, I mean, our generation has not seen and probably will never see. Something that hasn't happened in like 100 years, right? And she was born the year that it happened. And I've wondered, what kind of world is she going to grow up in? And because it's so different from what I grew up in. I remember, being a kid in Medina and just everything was fine. Everybody knew everybody back then, and the town was small, and it was nothing just to go ride your bike or play or anything like that. And that's not where we are right now. And you wonder, what are we going to do? Well, the kind of world that my child is going to grow up in and the kind of world we're going to be living in is a world that belongs to Jesus Christ. And we can hold fast to our confession of hope because he who promised is faithful. This thing is on a leash, and it's not out of the control of God. He's not surprised by it. And so we can have our hope, and we can trust in the hope that God has given us because he who promised, that is Jesus Christ, is faithful to us. It also says during times like these, let's consider how to stir up one another to love and good works. Friends, I'm just going to tell you, there are too many Christian people who are fighting over whether to wear a mask or not, whether to get vaccinated or not, whether you voted for Joe Biden or not, and it's just, we don't have time for things like this. We just don't have the time, and these things ought not to divide the church. They just shouldn't. Now listen, I've got my opinions about all three things that I just mentioned. I have my opinions, and they are strong opinions. And if you ask me, I will tell you my opinion about it. But I tell you what, if you disagree with me, I'm gonna try to argue to agree with me. That's why I hold to that opinion. That's worth fighting for. But I'm not gonna divide or cause division over those things. And I will just tell you that right now, what Christian people, what we need to be doing, what I need to make sure I'm doing, what you need to make sure you're doing as a Christian person, is to consider how to stir up each other to love and good works. Notice, it's not, he doesn't just tell us to actually stir us up, or the original Greek word is to provoke one another to love and good works. It's not just that. He says to consider how to do it. It should always be on your mind, how can I help my brother or sister in Christ into love and good works? How can I stir them up? How can I to get them and motivate them into pursuing love and good works? We need to be building each other up right now. And then finally, part of that is not neglecting to meet together. And this is maybe the question that's on your mind. Are we neglecting meeting together? I will tell you that I don't think we are. I don't believe we are. I don't believe we're in sin. Now, if the numbers were way down and wasn't a lot going on, I'll put it this way. A month ago, or back in June, early July, if we just decided not to meet in where we are in our town, we just decided not to meet, yeah, I would say we were probably in sin. There's no reason for us not to meet. But now, with the things that are going on, and we've prayed about these things, we've talked about these things, and we feel like we're just keeping our church safe. We're not in violation of this, what we're told in verse 25, to not neglect to meet together. For one, we're still doing everything we can to meet together. We're putting it online, and then as soon as we can, we're going to be meeting in person, not on the 5th, but on the 12th. So we're trying to get back to it. This is not something that we're planning on doing for a long time. So we're not neglecting to meet together, but I will tell you that it is important for us to meet together. And in some ways, listen, I know that this is all ordained by the Lord, and that this is not a surprise to Him that we're not meeting together. But I'll tell you, in some ways we are missing something, because there's nothing like being together with God's people. Because as you see in verse 25, when we neglect to meet together, we're not encouraging one another. He says, not neglecting to meet together as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another. How do you encourage one another unless you're together? And so I want to assure you that as your pastor, I don't believe we're in violation of not meeting together in a sinful way. We're doing what we've got to do to get through a pandemic. But I will tell you this, that meeting together is so important to the church. It is so important for us to be together in person. And that's why we're going to do everything we can to be together again as soon as we can, as safely as we can, and as often as we can. And so that's something that's not, that's just how Brother Jake feels about it. That's what the Bible teaches, that we need to be together as much as we can, encouraging one another. And so that's what we want to do. And so even though it may look a little different going through COVID, and we don't know how long this is going to last, but it's important for us to remember that we've got to meet together as much as we can. And when we are going through stages like this where we're not meeting for a week or two, that we have it in our minds that this is not how things are going to stay, that we're going to get back as soon as we can. But here's the good thing, that we're encouraging one another all the more as you see the day drawing near. Brothers and sisters, we need to be encouraging one another. We need to be stirring one another up to love and good works. We need to be holding fast to the confession of our hope, because the day is drawing near when Jesus Christ comes again and He calls us home to be with Him. And I can't wait to see Him and for that day to come. So listen, that's encouragement. That's something to hold on to during days like these. It's not going to last forever, and all this is going to come to an end sooner or later. We've just got to be faithful to trust the Lord to get us through it. This has been your Midweek Word for this week. If you would, be sure to like our Facebook page, follow us on YouTube, and we would love to have you join us virtually this Sunday online at 10:55 a.m. The video will be posted by 9, but usually we worship at 10:55 a.m. And we'd love to have you in person on the 12th, Lord willing, at 10:55 a.m. For worship. So please consider doing that. Reach out to us if you've got any questions. Message us on Facebook. Comment on these videos. We would love to reach out to you and get to know you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you Sunday morning.